Touhou Genso Rondo is one of the weirdest blends of genres I played in recent memory. Part shoot-'em-up bullet hell and fighting game with anime girls. It is one of the strangest and most interesting concepts I have played this year for sure. But is this interesting blend worth playing through? Or is it just another concept that ends up failing? Touhou Genso Rondo Bullet Ballet is part of the Doujin Touhou series of games. And if I pronounce anything wrong during the course of this, which I'm sure I am, I do apologize ahead of time. Heck, it was hard to actually find many of the fans of the series to agree on one distinct pronunciation. If you're unfamiliar with the whole concept of the Doujin Touhou games, think of it as fan games, or independent release tribute games. The series has its own characters and own story, but the characters are then placed into games of various genres. There's ones that are Mega Man-esque, other bullet hell type shooters, and even a Mario-style game. This one's based on Senko no Ronde, which has the same similar gameplay that is in this one, but was a game that was only released outside of North America, so many North American gamers probably aren't familiar with it. Well, the game has the aesthetics of a fighting game with rounds, a timer, and health bars. It is very much a shoot-'em-up. You are locked eyes with your opponent and you circle around them and try to move around the screen, firing your shots at them. Each character has multiple types of bullets to fire at their opponent, including also special moves. Your goal, of course, is to drain their health bar in order to defeat them while dodging their bullets, picking out those key moments to unleash your special attacks, and the whole time dodging a whole beret of fire that ends up littering the screen. While your main attack will be able to consistently come out with the square button, other moves are relegated to your sub-weapon bar. If that tank or bar ends up running out, you won't be able to unleash your special moves against your opponent until it ends up refilling, which can be done from charge-up drops as well as from dodging enemy fire. By holding L1, you will slowly be able to kind of glide across the screen, just narrowly missing bullets, and if you're able to just miss those bullets by a hair, it'll end up actually refilling your meter. So it gives you incentive to stay close to the enemy fire in order to dodge it. But you can also get away quickly for bigger blasts or just to try to get an advantage by hitting R1 to boost across the screen and try to get a better vantage point. There's also the melee attack, which will take enemy fire that is surrounding you and turn it into power-ups. Sometimes you'll get those charge token power-ups to fill up the charge meter, but a lot of times you're going to get those power tokens or tickets or whatever they're supposed to be. Think of them as kind of like the coins or bananas in Diddy Kong Racing and kart racing games. When you get them, you go a little bit faster than normal. Well, in this game, picking up those power tokens, you have a little bit more strength to your attacks. The counter is represented underneath of your health bar, and the more you have, the more damage you're able to do. But hanging on to them is relatively tricky, as moves from your opponent will cause you to drop them. A lot of times, you will have to decide whether or not it's worth going after these power-ups or staying back in order to get an advantage on your opponent. Plus, they don't stay on screen for very long, so you'll have to gather them quickly. It's a lot of fast thinking in this game, that is for sure. There is, however, also a melee attack when you get really close to your opponent. You'll kind of engage in fisticuffs and be able to deliver a few hits with whatever weapon your character has, delivering a couple of swift hits and knocking your opponent away. But you can block, and your opponent can block your attacks, and then deliver an attack of their own for some pretty decent damage once your combo has run out. There's then the spell and final spell attacks, basically turning whoever uses it into a boss character. They are allowed to unleash some really powerful, devastating attacks for a small period of time, or until their spell mode health bar is depleted, as it's separate from the main battle health mode. Whoever it's being done to, though, has the same health bar they have during normal fights, but they do have bombs to destroy enemy fire and do some pretty good amount of damage to whoever the boss is. The final spell mode works similarly, but can only be done by somebody who's almost dead, is on the very last ounce of health, and they can do that in order to kind of unleash even more powerful attacks to try to come back and win the round. But unlike in the regular spell mode, the health that they have left, once it's depleted, they end up losing the round. There is a few different modes for you to tackle, including story mode, which the story itself is told before and after each battle in visual novel style. There's no voice acting, English or Japanese to listen to. It's all done via text with the character pictures there. It's a little bit hard to follow or just okay with some of the characters. I'm sure if you're a fan of the already established characters, since they are in so many games and have their own universe at this point, you'll definitely enjoy this aspect. But for outsiders coming in, it's just kind of a means to get into the next matchup. The matches then are best 2 out of 3. Whoever ends up losing 2 is the loser, and then once you beat your opponent, you'll move on to the next fight. Once you go through a series of these fights against various opponents from the game, you are the winner and you will be rewarded with a small ending picture as well as some text at the end before the credits come up. There is no big final boss or anything at the end of the story for the characters. They just end up fighting the other characters that are also in the game, and each of the stories are a bit different from one another. It's not the same story for each character, thankfully, so for those who can get into it a little bit, they'll enjoy playing through as each of the characters, and they fight them all in a different order. It's not the same order of opponents each time, and it definitely gets harder the farther you get in, with the final couple opponents definitely being able to put up a fight. Then there's the arcade mode, which I thought would be more of like a traditional just 2 out of 3 fights, but without maybe the storyline involved. But what it actually is basically a gauntlet or endurance match, with you facing opponent after opponent in 1-round battles. If you beat your opponent, you move on to another one and see how many you can end up defeating before one ends up getting the better of you. And the farther you make it in, the harder these opponents end up getting. But once you lose, you're unable to continue. You get kicked back out to the main menu and have to start arcade mode over again. Thankfully, during the story mode, if you end up losing at any point, you can restart from that current matchup. And then there's the boss rush mode, which is similar to arcade, but as soon as the fight begins, whoever you're facing instantly goes into their spell mode, and you have to quickly deplete their health bar and defeat them when they're unleashing these huge amount of attacks. Thankfully, you get a full health bar at the beginning of each fight, but this is extremely difficult and will definitely put your bullet hell skills to the test for sure. But just like arcade, once you end up dying, it's back to the main menu, and you have to boot up boss rush all over again. There's also a versus mode, which can be done against the computer or against a friend, as well as online play, which is pretty cool for ranked and player matchups. This works pretty well. I didn't run into any slowdown during the matchups that I ended up trying out. I am definitely not the best at this game, as I'm still getting used to it, but it's definitely a nice little feature to include for sure. While playing through the game, there wasn't any major glitches or crashing of any sort, but there was some weird slowdown frame rate drops once I ended up completing certain battles, or if I ended up pausing and coming back to the game. I wouldn't say that these necessarily took me out of the experience overall, but were a bit jarring to see at the conclusion of each fight. I don't know if some of these are intentional to kind of build up the drama after you defeat an opponent to slow it down, but it just ends up looking pretty choppy. The music throughout the game, some of it's okay. A lot of them are apparently the themes of these characters from previous games, so that makes perfect sense. So if you like the music from the other games featuring these characters, you'll probably like the soundtrack. But a few tracks in particular, especially when going through the story in the story mode, were just a bit grating, and they loop way too fast and became more of a headache than anything else. The game is available for $29.99 via the PlayStation 4 store, though there is a limited edition of the game that is available as a physical version that comes with a few extra goodies along with the game that is for $39.99. Thankfully, the game does feature a full trophy list with a platinum trophy, with a lot of the trophies just being beating each mode as each of the characters. Story mode itself, while playing through and enjoying the story, will take roughly 15 to 25 minutes for each of the characters, depending upon how quickly you're able to defeat the opponents. Unfortunately, though, there's not much in the options department for multiple difficulties to either make things harder or easier for you during the course of the story mode. You just have to deal with the default stuff. In the end, while I like the concept and think it could be a lot of fun with the multiplayer, if you're picking up the game and you're just kind of more a casual shoot-'em-up fan, or not really familiar with the Touhou Genso games in general, you probably aren't going to get quite as much enjoyment out of the experience. For me, I'm going to be giving the game a 6 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.